All right, welcome to my YouTube channel. We're going to be doing a dolphin today, which is, I just think, so much fun. I love them. And for brushes, I'm just using like a 1-inch flat, a 1/2-inch flat, and then a couple of rounds, maybe like a somewhat small and then a little bit smaller. So something like that. And you can use whatever you have. It doesn't have to be exactly what I'm using. Now I'm going to start with my biggest brush. And again, I'm always just using the primary colors plus black and white and an 8x10 panel canvas. So what I'm going to do is paint my background, which is going to be mostly yellow. So I'm going to start with my white and yellow mixed together. And we're going to just work our colors on the left first. So I want the left side to be a little lighter, so I might use a little extra white mixed in on the left. So I can always just dip my brush right in the white paint to make it lighter as I layer. So sometimes you might get your paint in there and then you realize, ooh, it's not as light as I wanted. Just dip it directly in the white and it will help lighten it a bit. And I'm gonna go about halfway over, or maybe a little more. And I'm just coloring it in. Now at the bottom, I want it really light, so I'm going to use even more white at the bottom. Really light yellow on the left side here. So see how I can just pull across, getting it really light over there. And then as I pull further to the right, I will add less white and just dip my brush in the yellow. So it's really easy to adjust your colors this way. And I can always pull some of the darker color into the lighter color and vice versa. They don't have to be, you know, blocked off completely. It should be kind of subtle. And we can always layer to make it a little more obvious. So with that, I'm gonna go ahead and start making it even darker on the far right by adding a little bit of red into my yellow. So not too much because I don't want it to look like super orange, but it should look like either a dark yellow or a light orange, which is totally fine. And then that's going to start sweeping in on the far right. And again, I can mix a little bit of that in on the left, just not too much. And on the top, I'm favoring moving in a diagonal. Notice how I'm moving it slightly diagonal, and I can kind of tap that darker color a little bit over just to soften the transition. And then as I come down, I'm going to move more on a horizontal. So just a side to side. And then as I get to the far right, the bottom right corner, I want more red and white. So we're just playing with these three colors right here, yellow and white, and then bringing red in. And if you have more red and white, you're going to get more of a peach color. So see how that looks kind of pretty in the lower right. So we're just really changing the color a little bit right there, but I can sweep all the way through really lightly to help the colors blend. So don't be afraid to let the colors dance across the canvas just a little bit. And then I also want to use that peachy color to create my horizon line. So once you have all of that in there, I want to go at about halfway. So if I go to top and bottom and bring my fingers together, I'm going about in the middle, and I'm going to draw a horizontal line right in the middle. And that's going to be like, okay, everything above that is the sky and everything below that is the ocean water. And then what I can do to soften that line is I can just feather out the color up into the sky a bit. Just barely feather it out with the corner of the brush, just at the top of that line that you made. And we'll make it even more enhanced in a bit with a different color. But at this point you have, you know, a fun background. It's much brighter over here. It gets much darker over here. This is good. You want to have some variety in your shades. And then I'm going to go ahead and have this brush put away for now so that we can begin to layer more colors. Now, what's helpful if you are just starting out and, you know, you maybe don't feel like you have a really good command over the paint, you can always use a blow dryer to make your paint, the background dry before you layer. Not to say that you can't layer upon the wet canvas, which you can, but for this one, I want some of the colors to actually pop on top. We're going to be layering purple on top of yellow, so we don't want that to actually blend together. We just want it to sit on top. So I'm going to hit it with a blow dryer for just a minute. And then you'll know it's dry when it's not super, like usually it's kind of shiny when it's wet, and it will get a little less shiny when it's not wet. So we now have a somewhat dry canvas. I want to place my sun in the painting, so I'm going to take my finger. I like doing my suns with my finger. Get a little bit of white on your finger, not too much. You can always tap the excess paint off if you get too much. And I'm going to put a little sun right in the upper left-hand corner. Just make a little circle with your finger, just rubbing the paint on, rub in a circle. And I find that for some reason is just really helps me get a better circle. I don't know. That's just me. Maybe not you. You can always experiment and see what happens. But before we put a lot of we were going to put some texture in here. So before we do that, you can always touch up your yellow and all that. But let's get the purple in first, then you can touch up so it's not, getting too weird. Now I would take like a medium or smallish round brush, and then we're going to make some purple. So I'm going to take red with just a little bit of blue. And notice I'm just mixing a little bit here. I try not to use too much paint at once, and then add white to that. And I'm going to use this color to create some texture in the sky. So I'm going to go a little bit on a diagonal and just make little marks like that. Now it's going to show up as maybe like clouds or just some fun texture. And so they try to make some different sizes. Some can be a little bigger, some can be a little smaller. And then maybe some over here. Just clustered up. Kind of fun. And then you can also re-establish your horizon. This is really important. So I'm just going to go right over that line that we made with the peachy kind of color to make it a little darker. And you can always use more or less white in your purple mix to make some darker colors. So if you want to get some darker colors, like I might sweep in some darker purple on the top of that. Just little texture marks. And then you can also add some little texture marks in the water that are going purely horizontal. So just like the sky, we kind of have more of a diagonal movement, whereas on the bottom, we're making more of a horizontal movement. And at the bottom, I want my lines to be thicker. And at the top, they can be thinner. So I'm barely touching, just barely grazing the brush, the tip of the brush. If you're struggling with getting thin lines, just check your pressure. A lot of times people are just pressing really hard, and they don't realize it, like you don't realize how strong you are, or you've got too much paint on your brush loaded at the base where the bristles meet the metal. You actually just want it on the tip only, and that should usually help clear up any issues with that. Or you either have like a really, really bad brush, like an old brush that isn't pointy anymore, if you're using a round brush. So all of those things can be accounted for and checked on to troubleshoot. So notice I have like a variety of that. Then you can change your color a little bit, maybe add a little more blue to your purple and more white, and it creates more of a blue, like a light blue violet kind of color. So it's very more bluish, and then you can add some of that in. So it's just, you just want to get some variety, different colors, all of these things. You can even put some of that on top of some of the purple. So if the purple looks a little dense in some spots, or you want to change the movement a little bit, you can always come in with another color and just sort of soften it or move the feeling around a little bit to help with that. I'm doing this everywhere. So notice I'm going like on top of my purple in the sky. I'm going on top and in the water on the bottom. So again, still moving, more of a diagonal up here and more of a horizontal down here. And then if anything needs to be softened even more, I would just use a lot more white in either this purple shade or the bluer shade. So wherever you want to do it, but it almost looks like pure white. And then you can even add another layer, just intermixed. Or even it can just be on its own to create a different color in the sky, which I kind of like that idea too, just to add some lighter tones. And now that you have that in there, you can add the shape. Let's add the shape of the dolphin. Now, you know, this is kind of one of those moments where you just gotta have bravery test, just go for it. And that's okay. So I'm gonna take the medium round brush, the one that I was using, but I want it clean and dry before I do this next part. And I'm gonna use black. Now, where I want to have my starting and my finishing point. This is always helpful for spacing. So on the right lower area, I want my dolphin's tail to go about an inch over and about an inch above the left corner point or so, some approximate, doesn't have to be exact. So make a dot there. And then I want the tip of their nose to come all the way up. We're going to be down about an inch below your sun and about a ½ inch or so in from the left side of the upper area. So you're just kind of like there. So you have bottom of tail, tip of nose. Now your line is going to arc from one dot to the next. So what I'm going to do is pull from this line over to the right. And another good point before you go too far with that line is, where is this going to traverse on your horizon? This is another good point. That way your shape kind of stays good. But you can come to your space here, find the dead center. So if you're right in the middle, we're going to have our dolphin traverse through the center or through the canvas, like not at the center, but slightly off to the right. So if you find your middle, you want to go maybe about halfway between the middle and the right side, and then put another dot there. So that way the dolphin goes from there, and then they're going to reach. So make sure you're reaching all the way over to here, and then it's just going to come straight down like that. Now the head, this is the tip of the nose. The head is going to start about a ½ inch in on this point here. So come in a bit, and then you're going to make the top of the head with an arch like that. We can always change the shape, but notice how I'm going to make it go bigger. And then it's going to pull all the way across the back. And it's just going to, let's see, we're going to make it a little bigger. Don't worry, we can thicken it from the bottom too. I'm going to thicken it from the top and the bottom. Go down, and then the tail, it gets more narrow at the tail. So we really don't want to thicken the bottom up too much. Maybe just a little bit. And then I can do that at the bottom too, just a little bit. So I'm going to pull just a little bit thicker under. And then as I come down, we're going to make the shape just a little thicker through the body. So see how I can pull away from the center point just a little bit. Not too much. And it definitely shouldn't be more than you do here. So make sure that this line is going to be on the lower part of the body, and then it kind of makes its way into the center of the body as you pull down. And then again, it comes back to a point. So the fin, the tail fin isn't, or the tail part is thinner than the head and the body. So make sure you're not getting too thick with that. And then you can round out the tip of the nose, just kind of come over here and round it out just a bit and connect the dots. And then you can always smooth the transition between the nose and the face. So you can always smooth that out a little bit so it's not too harsh of a line. It shouldn't be like an angle. You can always make the head a little bit taller. You gotta go with whatever you're seeing happen on your canvas and what's working for your character, for your little dolphin. Maybe a little different for everyone. And then we want to position our flipper, like the fin, which is going to go like just a little bit down from the body right here. So I'm kind of maybe a little further down. We're going to put the dorsal fin like a little bit back on the character, like here. So we're going to go like right about here. It's about the dorsal, the top one is going to go from the tip of the nose to the tail. It's about halfway-ish from the tail to the tip of the nose. About. Doesn't have to be exact, but you make a little mark there so you know. And then your other fin is just a little higher than that. So this fin and then the flipper, the arm flipper, is going to come a little higher on the body. And then just make a little mark there. So this one's going to hook over to the right. So I'm going to pull out and make a hook like that. And then this one's going to hook kind of down. It's going to curve. This one's hooking up and over. This one's hooking like to pulling down and then pulling over to the right. And then you're going to triangulate that. So it's going to be pointier at the tip, and then you're going to pull it back into the body and make it thicker. Same with this, the dorsal fin. You're going to make it should be pointy at the tip, and then triangulate it, curve it, and pull it back into the body. And then we're going to put maybe just the remnants of a tail. So at the bottom, you can pull two, almost like a V shape at the bottom, coming out like that. But we're going to imagine that their tail is coming out of the water. And we're going to put some splashing and stuff there. So you're not going to see the full tail. It won't be part of the full design. But I want to color the whole shape in. That way you can look at it and be like, do I need to change anything? You may or may not. It's going to be different for everybody because it's a new day, you're using maybe slightly different materials, but that's good because there are no two actual dolphins like either. So we're good. Right, so we've got the dolphin shape pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it. I might make their nose just a little bit longer. So it's so easy to change. Just do it if you need to. And then while that dries for just a second, you can touch up other things in your painting. So I would just take a moment to do that so that you're letting that dry a little bit and you're touching it up. So like, for example, if I wanted a little bit more bright in here, like maybe my transition between my light and dark in the sky is kind of you can take your medium square brush and come back in and just pull in a little bit of that lighter yellow into and over the darker yellow in between your purple. So that can help with just breaking up that space, adding a little more richness and texture into your design. It is so fun to layer. So I usually do a little bit of this to create some just different stuff going on. And you can add more yellow in between the purple on the bottom. It's in between the shapes of the little marks that we made. So wherever you want to adjust your colors in the sky, I would do it now. And then you can also use more white. So if you wanted some parts to look lighter, you can add, like for example, on the left, I might want to add some more like white lines pulling from the left side. So it's reflecting the sunlight over here on the left. Like there's the sun up there, and then we have all of this highlight from the sun pulling down. But maybe you want some more pink in the water or in the sky. You can just make some pink. And then you can pull that in. So however you want to do some little touch-ups here, it's going to be fine. And it's going to look nice. But I do recommend doing a little bit of it, because it does, at any time you put a little extra effort into your painting, it shows. It shows. And then you can also go back and add more of the purple or the blue. So I'm going to do a little bit of that as well. So maybe I want to go in and add some more blue shade of purple. So it's like blue with a little bit of red and white. Maybe you want to add some more of that back into the bottom. Or in the sky, you know, play around. And then for highlighting the dolphin, I do want to use like a blue with a little bit of red and white. So that kind of color that we put in the sky, I want to use that to highlight the dolphin. Now, if I have more blue, it's going to look a little darker. So we don't want it to be way too bright, but we do want it to show up as darker than, or lighter, sorry, than the black. So make sure it looks light enough. And what I'm going to do is come to where the eye might be, which would be in from the nose a little bit on the face, like right about here. And then all I'm going to do is pull through the center of the shape and just wiggle the brush and pull down along the back side as I get to the tail. So notice how I just like wiggled. It looks kind of fun. And then you could take that color on the top of the dorsal fin and on the top of the arm flipper. Notice how I pulled the highlight in on the body a little bit. If your highlights aren't showing up, add more white. Or if they're not like blending in with your black, you have too much black, or it's too wet, just wait or use the blow dryer. And then you can also just use some more like gray color where it's just more like black and white. Maybe there's a little bit of blue, but you don't have to like add it. So if you just mix black and white, you're going to get gray. And then you can like paint some of that gray on the top of the shape. Or maybe you prefer that, and I can kind of go through the top of the face, go over where the eye would be, wherever you want to see. And then maybe you need to actually thicken up your shape a little bit. I'm going to make my tail a little thicker down here. So I'm going to add more black to the bottom of the shape. You can thicken it from the back as well if you need to. So you don't want your dolphin to be too skinny, look weird. So just make any adjustments you need to. Sometimes the highlights bring to attention certain things, like, ooh, I want to make my dolphin thicker. Or maybe I want to make the dorsal, or the flipper just a little thicker too. Or even the dorsal fin. So maybe I come and thicken this up just a bit. So whatever yours needs. And then I'm going to go ahead and just do some more highlighting, adding more white. And then you can, again, you can just wiggle and add to the top, to the face. I'm just putting a little more white in it so that it shows up more. And if it gets to be too much, just go back to either that darker blue. But you can use some pure white in there. So maybe I take some pure white and like wiggle it like that on the shape, which I like the way that it kind of adds movement. And then I want to put a little bit of white. I'm just doing pure white on the tip here, a little bit on the tip of the dorsal fin and the flipper. But I like to do broken lines so that it looks shiny because they're wet. And then you can go to the top of the face. Top of the nose, top of the head, broken lines. And if any of your highlights get a little too crazy, just remember you can go back to that blue, that blue grayish kind of color, and you can tone it down. Sometimes you might need to do that. You can go back and forth as much as you need, but don't get too nitpicky because that could like kind of get weird. But notice I have this like fun highlight on there. I really like it. And then you can add some splashing and stuff, which is super fun. So you want to clean your brush in between these things. You can also brighten your sun up a little bit if it needs to be a little whiter and more predominant. Just add more white to it. And again, you can always add more white to the left side, little streaks, the highlights. And then we want to create some splashing down below. So we're going to go ahead and use the white. And I'm going to pull from the tail and flick up. So see, I'm just pulling and flicking up. And you can kind of wiggle and just let your brush go kind of crazy right here. And I know it's going to be hard for my perfectionisties. And you can do some little dabs, little dots. You want it to look like a splash. So I'm pulling and then I'm dabbing. Tapping, just poking the tip. And then you can have some little speckles going up on the dolphin. Maybe some splash or splatter is kind of running off of their body, so you can put some splatter on their body. And again, maybe some of that the white up here is like splash coming off of their dorsal fin. I'm just making little dots and stuff. And then if that is not enough, like I'm just gonna add some more white over here while I have the white on my brush. If that is not enough, like you want more splash, I do recommend using the medium square brush. So if you get this medium square brush and you kind of moisten your white, I usually just use a little bit of water and mix it into my white until it's not so thick anymore. It's usually way too thick unless you're using like super thin paint to begin with. And then just scoop a little bit of that watery paint up and then just flick it on. This is going to create, I'm just doing it all kind of on those spaces where I want there to be some splash on the body and at the tail, right at the tail. So now we've added even more of an organic splash effect, which is super cool. And then if you want, you can always take the small brush and do more touch-ups. You can, you know, add more to your little clouds, add more to the lines on your horizon, maybe add like some more pink or more highlights on the dolphin. I'm just going to do a little bit of pink in the sky right here. And maybe in the water. I really want you to just focus on your, like, look at what you're creating. I mean, you saw what I did, but your painting's still going to look different. So you have to look at your painting and what's going to serve your painting as far as making it look more closer to the way you want it to look. So that might mean more highlighting. That might mean more black. That might mean like less highlighting. So you never know. Sometimes, like, notice I can go in with the black and I can paint over some of the highlight to just darken some parts. That's always essential to do. And I do like doing that with the smaller brush. You can even paint over some of your little splatter marks if it got too much on the body. Just really anything. You can also, maybe I want to add a little more darkness down at the bottom. I can use my purple, the red and blue, and then just really darken it up down here. You can even use the black if you want. And then again, you can always take that medium brush, maybe add a couple more layers to the splashing at the bottom if it's too transparent. So you're gonna have to just assess the situation and be like, do I need more here? And just for reference, like my paint down here is super thick. Like it's basically covering the tail. You don't really see that. And you're just seeing a lot of splattering and whatnot. So that's the idea. We want to create movement with this painting. And it's just a fun summer project. So I hope you enjoyed painting the dolphin. I'm gonna let mine go for now because I don't know. You can go on forever, but it's fun to let it go and then just start something new. As you go through the process more often, you're really going to be able to execute a lot with a lot more confidence. So I invite you to let it go as well and not overdo it, and definitely just finish it, do all the steps, finish it, and then let it go. And again, make sure to like and subscribe and share. Those things help the channel grow and spread the joy of painting, which I really think, I talk to a lot of people who've never painted before, and I'm always like, oh, you never tried it? And they're like, oh, I just can't do that. I'm not creative. And I just go, what? That's kind of crazy. I'll never forget the first time I created something and I really surprised myself. I was like, that was actually really not that bad. And it was super fun. And I really liked the headspace like that I went to and that I wasn't really thinking. I was just enjoying this creative process. So ever since that magical moment, I've always been really drawn to the experience of creativity and also helping other people see their potential and unlock that within themselves. So again, you liking and subscribing and sharing is also going to, spread that magic. And I that's what I do it for. So I hope you had a good time. And thank you for painting along, and thanks for watching. Bye.